Well, hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Brand Builder Show. And if you want to improve your sourcing and supply chain management, then this is the episode for you. Sourcing products and managing your supply chain is a massive, massive task for the modern day brand owner. And so we have brought Afolabi onto the show today to bring some knowledge and help us in this journey. Afolabi, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy and honored to be here. Thanks for having me here.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to diving in and learning about you. And I always say to guests we have on, like I said to yourself, I have to stop myself asking too many questions when I meet you for the first time, because I think they're probably questions that our audience wants to hear the answers to as well. So to bring us up to speed on your entrepreneurial journey, let us know, what have you been up to in the last few years? What is your experience and backstory? And bring us up to date with where you are right now.
Awesome. Well, I started sometime 2002. I had designed some shoes, some sneakers, very, colorful sneakers. And I was looking for where to make it. I was looking, for who to help me develop it. I have the drawings, I have the graphics, I have everything. I was excited. I just got out of fashion school in New York and, looking all over, trying to find somewhere to make the shoes. I couldn't find anything because those days we don't have Alibaba wasn't really big in those days. So and we had the dial-up internet, those internet you connect to your phone and you hear the sound, So I finally, after sending out a lot of inquiries, I found somebody. His name was Johnson, out of Taiwan. And he says, "Hey, we can help you make your shoes." I'm like, "Okay, all right. What's the process?" So he walked me through the process. He says, "No, you have to come here." I said, "Like, why would I need to come there?" But anyway, long story short, I had to fly into Taiwan to meet Mr. Johnson. Went to meet with his team, and it was an awesome experience. We started building the mold and developing the shoes, and little did I know that I was going into territories that I had no clue what I was doing. So I spent a lot of money. I had to borrow money from friends to make the mold. I shouldn't have made the molds. I could have just started with an existing mold and just, grow the market first before investing thousands and thousands of dollars into molds. Because when you're doing molds for shoes, you have to make a mold for different sizes, So if you're doing size 8 in US to 12 or 13, you have to make mold for each of the sizes. So it gets really, really expensive. So I had to make the molds. I had tons of designs. Instead of like narrowing down my design to just a few, I went like 40 designs, So anyway, we got to production and he said to me that my minimum order was going to be one full container. I'm like, wow. 7,512 pairs of shoes. I still remember clearly. I didn't know better, I didn't know I'm not supposed to get sucked into minimum order quantity, especially for an unproven market. I mean, I didn't even have a clue how I'm going to sell these shoes. But anyway, I went ahead, did letter of credit and whatever. We made the shoes. I had to visit the factory. I did the inspection by myself. Of course, it couldn't be perfect. I wear a size 13 US. The samples that I was testing was a size 9. So I couldn't even test the samples. I just went blindly, into building this product. So we got the product manufactured and I started going to trade shows because that was all I knew at that time, And then one way or the other, Amazon reached out to me and it's like, "Hey, we're starting to receive new products into our platform. We're transitioning from selling just books. We want to start selling, merchandise. We think your product is a good fit. Would you like to sell on that platform?" I'm like, "Of course." I don't know how to unload 7,500 pairs of shoes. So those were the days there was no Seller Central. It was really tough. Everything was by CSV file. So I got on Amazon's platform. It was live, and people were actually buying these shoes. I had no clue how they found it. There was no paid ads. There was nothing. Anyway, they were finding the shoes, but there was no FBA either. So you had to fulfill by yourself. So I had this guy, Mr. Ken, somewhere in California, that was helping me to fulfill the orders. The orders would come in. Many times he forgets about the order. He wouldn't ship it out until a week or whatever. It was a mess, total mess. But looking back now, I saw all my mistakes, and we sold a lot of those shoes, and it got to a point the shoes were being returned because the sizes were wrong. And I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to run somewhere and hide on an island or whatever? So I got to a point, I said, you know what? I'll just liquidate this inventory. So I had to find a buyer somewhere in Florida, and I just liquidated the whole inventory. I'm like, I'm done. And, later I got back into Amazon, but that's another story we can get to in the show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So lots of lessons learned, and particularly around sourcing, which, it's the old saying, that we learn the most from our biggest mistakes or our biggest challenges. And you have obviously, learned some things the hard way and are now putting that into practice, into really bringing a valuable service. So that's something we'll definitely dig into a bit more. To get to know you a bit more, I'd love to just do our lightning round with you, our favorite 5 lightning round. It really helps digital marketers, e-commerce brand owners learn new tactics and also get to know you a little bit more. So firstly, do you have a favorite e-commerce brand?
Yes, I love Apple because I'm very visual in terms of I really appreciate simple designs, and I love packaging when something is cleverly designed and packaged. So I'll pick Apple as my number one e-com brand.
Nice. What about a software or tool that helps you run your business or life?
I use a little tool. People may not know about it that much, but it's called Whimsical. It's workflow, building, when I'm building workflows to launch a service or to launch a product or to design, our, 3PL workflow, I go to this tool. It's like a mind mapping,
Nice, yeah.
tool, flowchart tool. So I really love it. It's called Whimsical.
Yeah, definitely. That's quite a unique one. I've not heard that before, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of our listeners that could find that useful, though, in planning things out and mapping things out. So that's great. Great shout. Okay, what about an organic marketing channel?
As even though the security reasons and this app is facing a lot of problems now, I still prefer TikTok because of the level at which you can go viral and which you can drive traffic to your listings or to your product. I'll say TikTok still is one of the best, if not the best, for me at the moment.
Nice. In one word answer, do you think it will get banned or not?
I think they will force a sale. I don't think it will get banned because there's such a lot resting on that app that it has a little bit of a political pool as well, because the young people, kids and teenagers are using TikTok, and I feel that if they ban it outrightly, I think it's going to affect the current administration politically because they're looking towards the younger people's votes. So that's my take. I think they're going to force a sale, but it's going to be very hard for them to ban it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it'll get banned, but we'll see. Okay, number 4, a favorite paid marketing channel.
I'll pick Instagram at the moment for return on investment purpose. I still feel Instagram for me, does better.
Okay. And then what about a business book?
The good old Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki has always been the most transforming book for me. I was in college when I read it, and I felt like just quitting college and just going somewhere else to go start a business. So to me, that's still going to be my best book so far.
Nice. Good, good. Love it. Thanks for doing those. Appreciate that. Some helpful information for our listeners. So talking then of product innovation, it's something that you, as you mentioned with your backstory, you have learned some things the hard way, but you've obviously learned some lessons and are really excelling in this area now with everything you're doing in your day-to-day business. So how can our listeners really stand out with product innovation? Obviously, the e-commerce industry, selling on Amazon, for example, it's a maturing industry, so there are more people doing it. So to stand out, our listeners will need to innovate. Can you speak to how people can innovate with their products?
So, thanks for that. I would want to start with my story of how I knew that product innovation was going to be very key for small brands or micro brands. I was in China like 6, 7 years ago, and I saw how Amazon was starting to invite factories to come and sell on their platform. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, wow, game over, game over. Game over for the smaller guys that is just selling a Me Too product, that is just selling a, average private label product that you're just going to slap your label on it. It looks the same as everybody else. Just put your label on it and start selling. I knew the time was over, and I started getting on podcasts. I'm like, guys, you got to wake up. The factories are going to start competing with you very, very soon. The only way you can outsmart them is by creating innovative products. And for me, an innovative product is a product that is moat driven, MOAT, which is a product that has unique selling advantage. You don't want to go to war unless you have a competitive advantage over your enemies, right? So it's the same way. You want to build any brand, you want to sell any product. These days, you need to have a product that will save you money in fulfillment, in storage cost, in tariffs. You need a product that will look different, solve problems that your competitors' products aren't solving at the moment. It's going to be a product that is unique to you and product that you can protect one way or the other, so that nobody can knock you off.
Yeah, that's really good. And how do, I know it's a hard question to answer, but my immediate follow-up is then how do people build moats in their products? Because we would obviously say the last thing you want to compete on is price, because a race to the bottom is one that nobody wants to win. Can you give us, with your experience, and I know you haven't sort of touched on it too much, but you do a lot of sourcing work, right? You have your agency. Is it a sourcing agency, or can you give us some more info on that?
Yeah, supply chain. So we kind of put everything together instead of just doing sourcing. We discovered that the brands and the customers that are coming to us, they just want a more holistic approach to their products. So we offer them product development, sourcing, inspection, shipping, clearing, tariff reclassification, and warehousing, 3PL, and order fulfillment. Nice. So we put everything under one roof so that you don't have to deal with 7 different vendors. You can just streamline your operation, and we'll get to that. You just streamline your operation, and you can save yourself a lot of time and effort in your business.
Yeah, that's smart. That's good. Okay. And so in terms of that moat, what are some of the most common ways or the opportunities, I suppose, for sellers to go in and build a moat around their product? Is it a case of having to innovate with brand new products, or can someone take a yoga mat, is the example I always use, and build a moat around a new kind of yoga mat? Give us some thoughts on that.
Awesome. So when you're building a product, when we're talking about product innovation, people always think, oh my God, it's going to be so expensive. It's going to be a product that is so complex. No, building a moat around your product just could just be changing the materials. I had a customer that was really big on, in puzzles. And, she's like, how can I make my puzzle better? She's like, what other materials can I use? I'm like, what's everybody using? Everybody's using paper. Okay, what can we use? Can we use PVC? Can we use wood? It's like, yeah, wood. Wood is good. I know very few companies are using wood. I said, okay, let's do wood and let color the wood inside. Every other puzzle has like a brown color inside. I'm like, how about you have like a felt material on the inside? How about you color it blue so that when they see any blue puzzle, they know it's yours, right? So these are simple stuff that you can come up with, that you can introduce into your product to make it completely unique. Some might be, if the product is so big, why don't you turn it into like a telescopic version, whereby it fits into very small packaging instead of fitting into a large package? Why can't you use other alternative materials like PVC, like composite materials? When everybody else is using wood, guess what? You could use something else. And also you could redesign your product to be flat packed. You can make the customer assemble the product by themselves. So there are tons and tons. You can add music, you can add lights, you can add sound, you can put remote control function to your product, you can add app to your product. You can make your product do two things. If you have a frequently bought together product, let's say you're selling a knife, and you all of a sudden notice that some people are also your frequently bought together product is a peeler. You'll be like, you know what, maybe I can create a knife and a peeler together in one single product. You can design it. That doesn't cost much. These are really simple products that you can come up with by reading what the problem is and looking at what is missing in the market, and also finding what you're passionate about. So if you marry passion with what's missing in the industry and the solutions that you want to create, you want to solve, the problems you want to solve, you will be able to create a really good product that it's going to be hard for anybody to knock it off, but remember to protect it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it really aligns with our philosophy at Brand Building University. We talk about creating high quality products that solve problems for a specific group of people. That's kind of like the brand builder blueprint as such. And so I think it really aligns with that. And finding something that you're passionate about solving is something that, sometimes people shy away from because they think, well, I know I have said in the past, don't sell a product. Don't just jump into a product that you're passionate about, because the emotion of that can allow your, the data to be skewed by your emotions. But if the data does support that passion, then that's the perfect combination. In terms of finding those opportunities, though, you listed loads there, which is super helpful and definitely is going to help people start to think of ideas. How do they start to narrow down, like how much innovation is too much innovation? Like the yoga mat, for example. If someone releases a wooden yoga mat that's got remote controls and lights and sounds, and that's going to be a bit much, right? And I know that's a silly example, but just from that perspective, how much is too much? How far do people need to go with innovation to really stand out?
Well, I have a rule of thumb, which is innovation should make things simpler, not make it more complicated, not make it harder. It should be simpler and simpler and simpler. When your customers are finding it hard to even understand what your product does, when they're finding it hard to know, is this a yoga mat or a music mat? I have this guy in New York, and he comes up with some weird products. He's the kind of person that would put a speaker on a yoga mat. I'm like, why would you do that? I want to make it Bluetooth, and I also want to be able to throw the mat up there, and I want the mat to be sliding, to have a little wheel. I'm like, math shouldn't have a will. So when you start to overcomplicate things and your product is getting complicated and harder instead of making it simpler than what's already in the market, you know you're going too far.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, that's helpful, very helpful. And then in terms of making those innovations or improvements a reality, obviously sourcing is another big part of the challenges for sellers getting started if they've never dealt with a manufacturer before. Do you find much resistance when you go to manufacturers and say, actually, we want to make these changes? And if you do, how do you overcome that kind of resistance?
Yes. So when you're looking for when you're going into product innovation and you're looking for a supplier, how I go for suppliers that are called ODM, which is original design manufacturers. Those are the suppliers that can actually modify structurally a product. When you come up with your innovation, when you tell them about what you're about to do, they're excited. They're excited. So they're ODM suppliers. If you go to an OEM supplier, which is just somebody that wants to do private label for you, you're going to face a lot of resistance and the project is going to take so long. So when you're searching for your suppliers, make sure you filter your search by looking only for ODM suppliers. In fact, when you're sending your first inquiry to your supplier, I kind of list all these things down in my new sourcing course. When you're going into Alibaba, make sure you're looking for an ODM supplier so that when you're sending your first inquiry email, it says, hey, I'm looking, are you an ODM supplier? Because I have my own design that I want to do. Once you narrow down and you're only dealing with ODM, kind of suppliers, they will be happy to help you with your product. And some suppliers may say, look, we will need a help of a mold maker, or we need a help of a mold designer. Then you can source for product development firms in China as well. There are, a few of them there that can actually design and develop prototypes for you. And once you do that, then you take it to your main supplier and say, I want to replicate this. These are the files. Help me replicate these in your own way.
Yeah, nice. You mentioned a mold there and getting one created early in your career. It is quite a daunting process for a lot of new sellers. The idea of doing one is, well, I can create a mold and create this unique product. It's great. Firstly, in your experience, how much should someone expect to pay for a mold process? And then B, when does that become worth it, in your opinion?
Yes, so mold is a very sensitive part of a product development. I'm going to use like a cell phone case, for example. So let's say you want to make a mold for this cell phone cover. This could be maybe $2,000 or less. It's going to be injection mold. When is it worth it? If you're making a big product, then the mold can be $30, $40, $50,000. So I would advise, before you even get into molds, you can 3D print your product first. Test it in the market, make sure it's good before you even invest in mold. And then when you decide to invest in mold, make sure that the ROI makes sense. There are different materials that are used for mold. I've seen brass mold before. I've seen copper mold before. I've seen aluminum mold and steel mold. It depends also on the lifespan of the mold. There's a mold that can create only 300,000 pieces of this product, and then they're not good anymore. There's a mold that can make 1 million pieces of these, and they're not good anymore. So you have to work out your rate and say, okay, if I'm spending 10 grand on a mold and it can only make 100,000 units, so what's my return? What's my amortization on my mold? You can also say, okay, if I pay $2,000 more and I get a brass mold and that can do 500,000 units, then you say, oh, okay, all right. So a brass mold is actually more has more ROI than the other one they wanted to do for me. So I think you should punch your numbers when you're looking at the mold and say, okay, how many pieces of this product can I comfortably sell in a year or in 2 years or in 5 years time before my mold expires? If you don't think you can move a lot of volume on that product, then I wouldn't invest so much money into the mold.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note, I think, for a lot of our listeners, not all molds are created equal. Like you say, there's great differences between them. So that's something that should definitely be investigated in that process. What I know a lot of people would ask about the protection of that mold then, and a supplier potentially using that for somebody else. That's obviously a big no-no from our side of things. Yes. Does that happen, or is that just a complete no-no for suppliers as well?
They do. They try to do it. So when you're building a mold, you have to have a mold ownership agreement in place. Okay. Make sure that you own that mold and that it's not a modified mold, because if your supplier is modifying a mold for you, they can lay claim on it, or they can buy it off of you. They can say, well, look, we cannot release this mold because it's a modification, or it's a modified version of our own mold. So for that reason, we cannot release it to you. So be very sure that at the very beginning, everybody's clear. You have a mold ownership agreement, and you can take your mold anywhere you want. If you want to relocate it to Europe and do your manufacturing in Europe or the US or Canada or Mexico, you'll be able to relocate it anywhere you want.
Yeah. Awesome. There's so many more questions I feel we could go into, but for the sake of time, we'll move on. But obviously, we'll be leaving your details in the show notes if anybody did want to reach out and take advantage of your services, because you know what you're talking about, that's for sure. But let's talk about 3PL operations briefly, because I know that's another area of your expertise, and it's something I wanted to dive into because it's becoming more important for sellers to really get a good 3PL strategy in place, or a good supply chain management strategy. Yes. Regardless of 3PL or direct to Amazon or direct to consumer, whatever that is. But from a 3PL perspective, how should e-commerce owners really optimize that part of the process? Can you give us some expertise, some insight into how you're really optimizing that stage of the process and keeping costs down when it is a really costly aspect of having to sell on, selling on Amazon? You used to be able to just send everything straight to Amazon, as you know, but now with more and more 3PL costs coming through, it does affect margins. How can sellers navigate this effectively?
Yes. So 3PL and supply chain management, smaller brands or e-com brands are just warming up to that phrase, supply chain management. It's a phrase that bigger companies have really figured out several years ago, and they use. Supply chain is just the path or the journey your product travels from conception to manufacturing, to shipping, to QC, to warehousing, and to order fulfillment till it gets to your customer's hands. That's just what supply chain. That's like a fifth grader definition of supply chain that I can give it. 3PL is part of that supply chain, and they do the logistics part. That means the receiving, the safekeeping, storage, and then fulfillment, either to send it to Amazon or to fulfill directly to your consumer. So this day, there are different types of 3PLs. Many people don't realize it. There is order fulfillment 3PL. That's what they're good at. They're good at fulfilling your order. So if you're selling on Kickstarter or all these places, they can fulfill your order for you. They'll store and fulfill. There is a product prep or Amazon, prep 3PL now, whereby they'll store your goods and they'll send it to Amazon for you. They are not set up to do order fulfillment. It's going to take them forever to do order fulfillment, and it's going to be very expensive for them. And the first 3PL that I defined, which is the order fulfillment 3PL, they do not like receiving containers. They want you to ship them just boxes, little boxes. They'll receive it in. They have to tag and put label on every single unit that you ship to them. They don't like receiving containers. They don't like getting big trucks. They only want small items. And they don't like sending products to Amazon because most of them don't have loading docks. And the third type of 3PL is the hybrid one. So they do a little bit of this and a little bit of the other one. They can do your Amazon prep. They can fulfill your Shopify orders, and they can do massive D2C fulfillment. So you have to talk you have to interview different 3PLs. Know what you want. What kind of business are you building? Do you want to just sell on Amazon? That's fine. Do you want to just sell on Shopify and you're looking for a fulfillment 3PL? Then know that that's what you're going for. But if you want a little bit of both, then you're looking for a hybrid 3PL, which is 90% Amazon and 10% of Shopify or other channels, Walmart, wherever else you're going to be selling, right? And when picking 3PL, I have a list of questions you should ask. So for everybody listening today, you'll be able to download it. I'll make it available for you guys to download this, cheat sheet for you to talk to your 3PL about. And I'll say the best way to get a 3PL is through maybe a podcast like this, or referral would be my number one. Most of the people, I would say 90% of the people or brands that we carry in our 3PL, they came by referral. I think, when a 3PL is doing a good job, people will naturally refer them and say, hey, this is what I'm using. This is the 3PL I'm using. So please ask your friends, if they're happy with their 3PL. That's the number one source of finding a good 3PL. Another one is communication. If you're talking to a 3PL and it's taking them forever to reply you, that's a problem. Third one, software. Do they use software? Can you see your inventory live? Can you create orders? Can you create, work orders directly from the software? If no, then problem. How flexible are they is another issue. Are they flexible to help you bundle? Do they do kitting for your product? Can they help you if your product has issues? Can they help you fix it? So many things in flexibility, automation, accessibility, cost-saving solutions. Can your 3PL sit with you and discuss how you can save? The goal of your 3PL is not to suck out as much as possible from you. It should be a partnership. There should be an extension of your business. So you guys should sit down together and say, hey, how, a 3PL should look at your workflow and say, no, you're gonna be wasting money on, logistics cost if you keep doing this. We have a lot of brands come to us and I'll say, tell me what you're doing now. Let me see your workflow. Oh, I'm going to bring this product and I'm going to send it to North Carolina. And I'm like, why are you sending it to North Carolina? I don't know. Oh, and then I'm going to do the inspection when it lands in North. Why are you doing inspection in the US? It's expensive. Why don't you do your inspection and your labeling, from the origin? So there are so many things to, take into consideration. Do they have turnkey services? How's the speed at which they send your goods out? Are they reliable? So all these interview questions will be in the cheat sheet that we're going to make available to all our listeners.
Awesome. That's perfect. Thank you for that. In terms of keeping costs down, you said about, working with them to find ways to make it manageable finance-wise. One of the big expenses and one of the big challenges is the extra step that it creates, having to, whereas you used to be able to just send direct to Amazon, now you have to send some stock sometimes to a 3PL, and there's obviously then the receiving costs there, and then there's the pick and pack to send those cartons to Amazon as you send them, and the shipping fees to Amazon. So there's extra costs involved there.
Correct.
What strategy do you run in order to optimize that? Do you say you have a client that their restock limits or their, the cubic feet system that it is now at Amazon, they are, getting towards the limit, so they can't send everything to Amazon. Do you try and then just send everything to a 3PL and then everything onto Amazon? Or do you try and send some direct to Amazon to save on costs? Or does that end up becoming such of a nightmare that it doesn't save on costs? Do you have any kind of insight you can give us there?
I think it's on a case by case basis. First, your supplier that is going to be shipping your goods out, if you're sending directly from, let's say, from China to Amazon, your supplier better know what they're doing. Because I've heard a lot of horror stories. By default, that's the most cost-effective way to do it. Split your goods and say, all right, this one should go direct into Amazon and this one should go to my 3PL. But if you don't trust your supplier, if they don't have a lot of English speaking people or people that can manage that flow over there, it could become a nightmare. They could send the wrong items, slap the wrong labels on the wrong box, ship it to Amazon, and it creates a lot of mess and problem for you. So I would say it depends on when do you order the products. Time your orders very well to maximize, if you trust your supplier, to maximize how you send it from, your supplier first into Amazon, and then the rest can stay with your 3PL. I used to be a promoter of keeping your stock in China because the warehousing is cheaper, but with the COVID, what COVID taught every one of us, I don't want to leave my goods over there. I don't know what's going to happen. So I still like to have it on US soil as close by as possible so I can react to market changes and market trends. I had this lady, she ships from China directly to Amazon all the time until somebody on TikTok did a review on her product and she sold like, who knows, 5,000 units in a day. And she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, yeah, you have to go order. She has to call it from China and everything because she couldn't react because she doesn't have a 3PL here. So she learned in a hard way. Another reason you might want to put into your workflow for your 3PL is the returns. Now that Amazon does not reimburse us for damaged returns anymore, we found out that most of the products that Amazon calls damaged are not actually damaged goods. They were just opened and maybe the packaging was bad. So you can talk to your 3PL, especially if you sell products that are $30 or $50 and above. Talk to your 3PL about receiving. A lot of 3PLs don't like doing receiving. That's part of my questionnaire to ask your 3PL before you commit. If they don't handle returns, then they might not be a good fit for you.
Okay. And what do you think about this strategy? Because I've been thinking about basically doing every other shipment. So one shipment I'll send, because we try and order about once a month to keep a regular flow. And so one order, send it direct to Amazon if they'll let me. And then one order, send it to a 3PL, one order to Amazon, one order to 3PL. So it's kind of like half and half, but it saves the splitting of each shipment. Does that sound good or am I going crazy? What am I missing there?
If you send directly to Amazon, are you sending by LCL or you're sending by air cargo?
LCL.
Okay, so you're sending LCL directly. Another question is why don't you put everything in 3PL before saying, okay, you want to cut out the 3PL side for some products? I think it's good because I see a lot of customers do that. A lot of brands do that. I don't see any problem with it because it's only that as long as you can time it very well. If you can time it very well, create some buffer into your timing, I think it's going to work. I think it, obviously works really well. But if you don't time it very well, you can end up with a lot of inventory on Amazon and they'll charge you excess storage because 3PL storage is usually cheaper than Amazon in most cases. and the reaction to market it's just a big one for me. Let's say you send stuff to Amazon and it sells really fast, and you don't have anything waiting in your 3PL to react within a 1-2 week period, then it becomes a problem. But it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely. Good. Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you for that, and I'm sure, hopefully, it's helpful for some of our listeners. I'm just getting a bit of private consultancy here, so I appreciate that. Amazing. Listen, we're coming up to the end of our time together, and I know you're a busy man, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But just in terms of, if you could sort of summarize your journey and your advice, everything you've been talking about today, is there a kind of final bit of take-home advice that you would give to our listeners before we close?
Well, the way I can rephrase that question is, what will I do differently if I were to start all over again, having all the bad and good experiences? I think I'll innovate more. I'm going to protect my innovation. I'm going to automate using tools and software more. I'm going to diversify. So I'm not just going to be heavily reliant on China. I'm going to look at other places, look into wholesale, look into Canada, look into different places, Europe, and Mexico, wherever else I can diversify into. And I'm also going to outsource. So whatever I'm not good at, I'm not going to be jack of all trade. I'm just going to get the best of the best to handle different parts of my business. And then I'm going to partner up. I found out that businesses that have partners, they grow faster and they're more stable. So if you have weaknesses and you have somebody that can complement that, that would be ideal. And the last of everything is to enjoy every single day. A lot of us, quit our day jobs and come to e-commerce because we wanted freedom, right? And then you get into e-commerce and you're spending 100 hours a week. And there's no rest. You don't spend time with your kids. You can spend time with your wife, your family, nothing. You're always glued to your computer. You're looking at, talking to suppliers, talking to vendors. So what's the point of leaving your day job in the first place? You're not really enjoying life. You're not living the kind of life that you had always imagined you're going to do. So I would say innovate, protect, automate, diversify, outsource, partner up, and enjoy every single day. Do not postpone your enjoyment. Live now.
Man, that is some value-packed advice there. That is the best answer we've got to the final question of an episode. Yeah, I think so. You're a legend. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us, Afolabi. It's really insightful and helpful. And I'm sure there'll be lots of our listeners that will be wanting to find out more and get in touch and connect with you. Where's the best place to do that? Obviously, we'll leave all the details in the show notes in the description. But just for anybody that's listening on audio, where's the best place to connect with you?
The best place is to go to our website, honuworldwide.com. That's HONU worldwide. That's WORLDWIDE.com. Or you can just send us an email at savings@honuworldwide.com.
Nice. Awesome. So we'll leave that in the show notes. We'll also leave the link to, you've got a new course, Sourcing Mastery, I believe it's called.
Yes.
So people can grab that, and then also the 3PL cheat sheet we'll leave there in the description as well. Some value to be had for all of our listeners. Afolabi, thanks for coming on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me. I really had a great time. Thanks. And I wish every listener great and successful 2023 and beyond.
That's amazing. Well, thanks everyone for listening as well. I'm sure you got loads of value out of this. Keep on pushing hard in that supply chain, and keep working hard to better yourself. Learn the things that Afolabi's been talking about today. It is a lot to learn. There is a lot to get hold of in the e-commerce space, but if you do master it, there's incredible businesses to be built. So go back, listen to this episode again if you need to. Reach out to Afolabi. Reach out to me if you need any help. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next. Take care.